Hi Year 6, welcome to week 4 of online learning. We are just going to go through our day for Monday. So we're going to start with literacy contract. Now for our literacy contract, Mr. Martin and I have changed it to be you must complete 2 tasks a day. So we have done a star task and a non-star task. So we thought each day you can choose any of those activities. So whether you do 2 star tasks on Monday or whether you do a star task and a non-star task, that's up to you. But we will have 10 activities for you to complete. So our first one is a spelling activity. So there is spelling activities to do on Study Ladder. You need to do at least 3. So that means you can do 4, you can do 5, but you cannot do 1 or 2. At least 3. Our next one is BTN. So the BTN is about the Tokyo Olympics, and there is a doc. So if you click on that BTN, that takes you to the actual story. But if you go to our literacy, you will see BTN week 4, and that is where our questions are, and you will get answer your questions from there. Mr. Martin's going into it now. There you go. And I've also linked the heading Tokyo Olympics. That will also take you to the BTN story as well. Our next one is our shared reading. Now, all of our shared reading this week is on the winners of each of the years that we've done. So we've got Anna, and Anna is doing her speech. And what we want you to think about is we want to think about what is 5 of her key ideas that she has in her speech. So you have to list 5 of them. And then at the end of the speech, well, it's actually not at the end, it's throughout towards the end of her speech, she's calling us to do something. So what is she calling us to do? And we want you to talk about that. Our next activity is grammar and punctuation. So again, I will put, Mr. Martin and I will put up some study ladder activities around grammar and punctuation. Your read work. So everyone has a read works assigned to them, and you will need to read that and then answer the questions on your read works. And Mr. Martin and I will get that in our Google Classroom as well. Our next activity is to do read theory. And again, at least 2 activities. Mr. Martin and I can see how many activities you are doing each day. For our Greek word, our root Greek word is going to be non. So again, you need to find some words that start with non, and then you need to put them into some compound and complex sentences. Remember, complex sentences has a dependent clause at the start, followed by an independent clause. So it won't make sense at the start until you put the section on the end. And our mini speeches, that is you videoing this week. So you need to video yourself on your Flipgrid. Dogo News, that is again on our Google Classroom under literacy. And then our last activity is an activity that you can do on a book. It can be any book that you're either reading now, or it might be a book that you've read in the past that you really like. It might even be about a picture book that you enjoy. We want you to create a comic strip based on the scenes from the book that you are reading, or you can even do a TV show that you're watching at the moment.
One thing just to remember, Mrs. Morse, with those mini speeches,
Yeah.
remember, guys, that after you've recorded your speeches, there's also a reflection part that we want you guys to complete as well. So you'll need to go onto our Google Classroom. Under literacy, your mini speeches are there, and you guys have all got your own copy. So when you guys click into it, having a look at week 3 and 4, there's a section after you've actually written your speech and recorded it for you guys to do some self-reflection. So it's going to be really important for you guys to make sure that when you have finished recording your speech, you're not completely done. What you need to do is that you will need to go through to that slide where it's a self-reflection, a self-assessment for yourself, and make sure that you actually think and reflect about what you did really well during this speech this week.
Yeah, Mr. Bunn, I don't think I had anyone do it last week. for the first 2 weeks, and that's okay. We're just going to move forward from now. So moving forward from here, we want you to go over to this Google Slides, and we want you to do the self-assessment.
And that's you. And then that will also be for next time. It's also about setting some goals for yourself. So some goals that you can set for yourself the next time that you actually do some work. All right, so then we're going to start moving on, and we're going to have a look at our next task after our literacy contract is obviously shared reading. So again, the task is that you're going to be watching Anna's speech. And Anna makes a very clear connection between her introduction and her conclusion. In her introduction, she counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and she talks about how many people have actually died from poverty during that time. We want you guys to answer this question, either here or you can answer it onto the next slide. How does she bring it all together in her conclusion? So how does she use everything that she's actually talked about in her speech? And how does she use that in her conclusion? Do you feel it was effective, and why? If you think it was effective, or if you don't think it was effective, back up your answer with some reasoning and make sure that you guys are going into good detail. Maybe find examples from the text to also back up your answer. And that will take us on to writing.
So in our writing today, we are finishing off our speech. So you should have finished writing your speech. So now we're up to editing our speech. And I know I've given some of this feedback to my kids, and Mr. Martin has as well, in terms of when we're editing our speech, as we're reading it, we need to use the punctuation of how we're speaking. So if we're having a break, we need to show that. If we're really exerting our voice at that point, maybe you might want to put it some in capital letters or in some bold, just so that we know how you're expecting to deliver your speech. So you need to edit your speech in terms of how are you going to say it. Does that make sense, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, it makes sense. Just making sure that as you're editing and going through it, guys, that you'll know exactly, and Mrs. Moore and I will be able to see how you might actually put some emphasis into it. I know in one of the kids in my class's work, they've actually put in brackets if they're going to be using different hand gestures during that time as well.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Even if you're thinking about using some different hand gestures or something to do, maybe you can add that in brackets in your speech. That could be really useful as well for us.
I've also got on this slide just to check the tense of your writing. So are you speaking in the present, past, or future? So just make sure that your tense is the same across your whole speech, because sometimes we can get a bit in the more the past and the present is what we flick between. So we need to make sure that it's consistent across your whole speech.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and that will take us up to math for today. So like we have as well, guys, our warm-ups, always at least log in and do at least one. So if you want to do 2, you can do 2. 1 Matific, 1 study ladder, or a few more for your warm-up. This is going to be a rich task. So now we're focusing more on the division strategies more than multiplication like we did last week. So I have 132 carrots, and they need to be put into equal bags. And that's the important thing to remember. When we're doing division is all about sharing things equally. There must be at least 4 carrots in each bag. We want you to list at least 3 different possibilities of how the carrots could be shared into those equal bags. Now, if you find that task really easy, if you get 3 possibilities really simply, there is an extending task down here, which we'd like you guys to try. If you're struggling with this a little bit, there's an enabling prompt there that can also help you guys out. And you can put your work, either if you want to do it into your book and then take a photo and upload it, or you can work directly into this doc. It's up to you. And our last thing to do for today is science. So for science, we were discovering that a lot of our household appliances that we're using use electricity in order to transform their energy from electrical energy into another energy source. So electricity obviously has to come from somewhere. So what we would like for you to do today is that electrical energy can come from a number of different sources. Listed here are a few different things where electricity can come from and how it is transformed and created. We want you guys to choose one today. So you can either choose fossil fuels, solar, wind turbines, geothermal, hydroelectric, or nuclear. They're all used to create electricity somehow. So what we want you guys to do is do a little bit of research and find out how does one of these things turn their energy into electrical energy, and you can put your research and your findings onto the next slide. And that's everything for Monday, guys. If you have any questions, jump onto our 9:30 Zoom meeting, ask the questions there about it. Or if not, if you missed that class, post them onto our Google Classroom or email Mrs. Moore and I, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
And can I just say that when you're doing that research, remember, it's just dot points. You might want to put it into a table. You might want to just, you put it on there however you like, however you want to research, that's how you want to do it.
Exactly right.
All right, have a great day, Year 6.
Thank you, 6.